Part 2. Now we get to log in a user because we've successfully registered them. That part's all working right. We also have log out working properly. So the only part we need to do is make sure we can log them in. All right. So I say let's go ahead and start on the form page. I think that kind of makes sense. So we've got this registration form up here. Let's create another form for logging in. You guys want it to be above or below? Below. Okay. So let's just leave this down here. We'll come down here below and set up a new form. So don't forget, every time we create a new form, geez, stop that. Every time we create a new form, yeah, we have to add that CSRF token, right? It's very easy to forget, so let's add it in. All right, good deal. We need to create an action, so I'm just going to go, we already have a page at the /login route. So let's do something like this, users/login. That should be good, right? And then again, our method, host, everyone, host. Let's liven it up in here. Yeah, all at the same, let's not all say it at the same time. Okay. All right, so this time we actually don't need that many inputs, right? What are the only two things that we need to get from the user who's trying to log in?
Username and password?
Yeah, only we're not doing a username, which I find quite, what did that say? Where? I just didn't know if it was related to usernames. So usernames I find to be a little bit on the annoying side. I don't know how everyone else feels about that, but it's like, God dang, just use my email, please. I don't want to create a username for everything. All right. So let's keep it simple. We're just going to take in the email and then let's take in their password, right? Just those two things, and we're good. All right, so let's set up these inputs. Email. I'm going to leave that, well, I will say type email, whatever. And then the name of this is just going to be email. And then let's do another one. This will be password. Password. All right, and then we just need a submit button. Submit. Okay. Let's make sure this is still rendering. It's always good to kind of keep an eye on your code and your pages to make sure that nothing has broken. So if I go here to login, now I've got this secondary form down here. Whoa, that's some pretty awesome UX, right? User experience. I'm pretty pumped about it. So let's put another little H2 tag down here just saying login. So it's a little bit more clear that we've got two separate forms here. So that's cool. Beautiful. Let's go create a function which will actually handle this login, right? All right, so let's go into our views.py. And I'll move way down here to the bottom. Let's just create a new def login request. All right. Now, first things first. We probably want to find out if this user is even, or if this email is even in our database. Does that kind of make sense? Because if that email is not in there, do we even need to do anything with the password? No, right? They're finished. This login didn't work. Failed. All right. So how can we check that? How can we see if that user is in our database? Anybody? If statement? Yeah, that's always good, right?
Request.post is equal to something in the database.
Yeah, you're kind of on the right track there. I mean, it's not like you didn't get all the way there, but the idea is right. You know, we're gonna take from the request.post the email that came through and just see if that's in there, right? Okay. Now, there are two different ways we could potentially do it. We can either use a filter. I don't know if you guys remember filter at all, but I can filter by email address potentially. Or I could do the get method and then just say where email equals this. Now the interesting thing about the get method is that if that email does not appear in our table, it's actually going to raise an error, raise an exception. Okay? So you remember our old friend try and accept?
Oh, yes.
It's back. All right. So what we could do is we could do something like this. We could say try. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to find this user. So I'm going to say user equals user.objects.get, and we'll say email equals, again, request.post email, right? So we'll say request.post and then email. Okay? So if that fails, in other words, if an exception was raised, oh, not expect, I didn't, accept, yeah, there we go. All right, so in other words, if an exception is raised and that person was not in our database, we can do something down here. Probably what we'll do is we'll just redirect them right away, right, and say something like check your username and password. Now, or not username, sorry. Why do I not want to say check your email? Does anyone know?
Wait,
Oh, you have a question? Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
If their email's not in a database, does that mean they're not registered?
Indeed. Yeah,
Okay, so
it does, right? All right, so why don't we want to tell them that email is not in our database?
Like security purposes, probably.
Right. So as soon as they know that that was not a working email, well, they just can move on to the next one. Versus if we keep it vague, like you don't know what the error was. It's not really like a huge wall in the way of a true hacker or whatever, but it's like, why give them more information than they need, right? And it sucks too from a user standpoint too, because sometimes you're there and you've set up an account with that site or whatever, and it's like, well, I probably used a different email address. Crap, now I can't remember what email address I used, right? So then you got to go to your email account and go search for that, whatever the site was, and see if you can find the original sign-up email or something like that. As you can see, this has happened to me a couple times. Sorry. It really sucks. Yeah, sorry about that. All right, so again, what we want to do if we hit this exception is we want to just set maybe an error message like we did before, just saying, please check your email and password. So the way that we do that again is we say messages.error. We call this function and we pass in the request, and then we'll say, please check your email and password. Okay? And then the next thing we want to do is we want to essentially get out of this function, right? There's nothing else we need to do except redirect them. We know that it failed. So redirect back to login. Cool. And then we get down here. So if we've gotten past this part, what that means is that yes, this email was at least in our database. We know that much for certain, right? Okay. So what do we need to check then at that point? Yeah, we need to check the password. So if we want to just kind of check this functionality for now, we probably can. We should be able to actually run a bad email address, or one that's not in our database yet, right? And see if we're actually getting bounced out. So let's try that real quick. So I'm just going to put in a@b.com. Oh my gosh, stop it. Man, that's driving me crazy. The darn keychain won't leave me alone. All right, a@b.com. Page not found. Oh yeah, we forgot something, right? What didn't I do? Oy vey. All right, let's open up our urls.py and add that in there, right? So just put it in here. Path users/login. Use.login. I think I'm going to move this up above here. Well, I'm concerned that if that was below, I may actually hit this route instead.
Oh,
Not positive if that would happen, but it seems to me like basically when it parses through these routes, it'll find the first one that is a match, right? And so if users is a match, it could potentially render that, or not render, but actually run that function, right? The create user function. I don't want that. All right. Yeah, and in fact, you ran into an instance of this kind of thing, AJ, where he had a wildcard, so in those angle brackets, ID, and then later on in his code, he had something like /new. Now, he was trying to go to the new route, but it was actually picking up the ID route. So sometimes you got to be careful with that. And the way that we fixed it was by just adding an int designation on the ID to say that that ID has to be an integer. So that fixed that problem. Okay, so we've got our route now. Let me try that one more time. bob@bob.com. Yeah. All right, so that part's working well. Excellent. So now, as you said, the only thing that we need to check is just to make sure that that password is right. So if we go back into this bcrypt section here, we also have this other function here. Let me make it a little bigger. Check PW, okay? And that's going to return us a Boolean. It's going to return true or false. So if it matched, then we get a true, and we know that is the correct user, right? And we can do what once we've determined that's the correct user? Yeah, so, well, yeah. I mean, we're all kind of on the right track. So when we say log them in, how does our app know that a person is logged in? How do we let it know when we register the person? Yeah, there we go. I hear it back there. So we need to add their user ID to the session, right? Okay. All right. So let's just grab this little function here. And then let's incorporate that here inside of our views. So we'll say if, okay, and instead of test, what am I going to put inside here? Request.post password, yeah, because that's what I took in from the form, right? So request.post password. Okay. #1, however, is going to come from where? Instead of #1, because we don't even have this variable, this is just something I grabbed from the platform. So again, always be aware of what you're kind of copying and pasting. So the thing that I want to put in here is going to be the hashed password that came from the database. All right. So you guys know how I can get that? I've got a reference to my user up here, right? So how do I get the user's password? User.password. Exactly. Okay. So if this matches, and I'll put a little colon here, what that means is that we can add this user's ID to the session, right? We can say request.session user ID equals user.id. Okay? Does that pretty much make sense to you guys here? We're checking the password. If it returns true, that means that there was a match. So we've already determined two things. We know their email's in our database, and we know the password matched, so we're good. This person is legit. All right? So you did that. Where do we want to redirect them once we've logged them in? I'm going to say just the index route, yeah, because that's where we had those movies showing up, and that's where it's going to say their name, right? You know, hi, Bob, or whatever, whoever it is. Right? So if I get past this, what that means is that this if condition didn't trigger, right? Meaning that I had a password problem again. All right? So I can pretty much grab this code here and drop that down there. Okay? So, oh, my indentation was messed up. So here, if we've gotten this far, that means that we didn't successfully log in, right? And now I'm going to add that error to my error messages, and I'm just going to redirect them back to the login. All right. So let's try that one more time. I'll use a correct email, but I'll use a bad password. So I think this was the email that I used. What? Oh, goodness. They have to be encoded. Oh, you know what? They probably put that in here. Yeah, so we have to encode the password hash that came from the database first. All right? So watch out for that. It's like a little bit of a gotcha there. All right, so let's go back to our code real quick. And I'm just going to add that in there, user.password.encode. Let's try it one more time. Confirm your resubmission. Okay, cool. So that didn't work, right? Because I knew that I was typing in a bad password. Let's type in a working password. Oops. Okay, that worked. Now I can log out, and again, if I try to go to that index route, why is it saying that twice? That's a little weird. It's almost like sometimes those messages get stuck in the system, you know?
Yeah.
It's a little odd.
I think that the browser caches your, like, some of your HTML and CSS maybe? Or
Yeah, I mean, I want to say that's what it is, but I feel like that's not it.
so weird.
Yeah,
It just
Huh.
seems to be emphatic.
kind of sucky.
Yeah.
But let's add maybe a couple more users or whatever for fun. Ashton, you want to be in my?
Sure.
All right, you're up, man. Is it Delgado like that? All right. A@d.com. Hi, Ashton. Cool. So I can log Ashton out and presumably log him back in. Yeah. All right. So we have ourselves a working LoginReg app here. So as I said, the login part is decidedly less painful than the registration. There's a lot more going on in the registration.
When you do the logins, does the capitalization matter?
As far as like the email address, I don't think it would. Let's test that theory, though. So if I go, oh, it does. Never mind. It does. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's kind of a good thing. Although sometimes people do weird capitalization with their emails.
Yeah.
You know, like they've got some stuff capitalized, some things
I
not.
thought when you make an email, like any email, I thought it wasn't case sensitive.
Yeah, but the web form for registering an email or the name
That's
maybe.
not fair.
I know, right?
I mean, we could force it to lowercase if we wanted to be sort of generous to our users. I don't know I know there's a built-in function in Python to lowercase. Yeah, it seems like lower, right? Is that it? Dot is upper, is lower, is lower. String dot lower. Yeah, literally we would just call dot lower on it. So if I was in here and I wanted to be nice, let's see, where are we checking? So we would do it to this string, right? The actual email string. So we go lower like that.
Dot lower or dot?
Yeah, you have to call that method on the string itself.
I thought it was is lower.
That would be to actually return a boolean. So yeah, it would just tell you was it or not. So if I go back here and I try to do this again, There we go. So now we're being nice. Yeah, we're just turning everything to lowercase. And we probably have to do that on the registration too. Because what if they gave us like an all uppercase email when they were registering? Well, now it wouldn't match that in the database because we're lowercasing everything. Yeah.
Let's see your session table in your leads one.
My session table?
Yeah, I want to see the password.
Oh, right. Sure. Yeah, that's a good call. So let's, do I not have this open right now? SQLite. Okay, so if we go down here to the Explorer, let's go down to, I'm going to just check the user table because you wanted to see what the password looks like, right? Close this. Hold on one second. So if we scroll over here, you see these two hashes, and you know what's funny? It's kind of like what I was talking about earlier today. I entered in the exact same password for both of these people. But look, their hashes are way different. Kind of cool. All right. Does that seem like something you guys can do, LoginReg? Given a little bit of time. So, yeah. Now, so this is why I'm saying make sure that you have this built before you try to take the exam. Occasionally it happens that somebody tries to do this during the exam.
Never works out.
Well, I mean, I guess it could theoretically work out. If the person was like super focused, they knew what they were doing, yeah, it's possible. But it's just, why even take that chance, you know? Just make sure that it's built out and working, and then you could pretty much worry about the other things on the test. AJ's like, this isn't the whole test? Yeah, wouldn't that be awesome, right? Just log in and register and you're finished.
That'd be nice.
I was just rewatching the videos just to, that was just a test.
Yeah. Just master this and you're done. Yeah. But tomorrow we'll take these two things that we worked on over the last couple days. So yesterday we did our movies, today we did our user, and then tomorrow we'll connect them. So a user will actually have movies. All right, and if I put some movies in my database personally or whatever, when I go to my index route, it's going to show my movies, not yours or the next person's. All right. Sounds good, yeah. All right, cool. Any questions before we break?
From a while back, I remember something about like your cookies that you had to clear one time. How should we get stored the cookies from user check?
Wait, are you talking about sessions?
Yeah, are we talking about the session or the cookie itself?
No, because I remember like I can't remember what exactly happened, but I just remember like one of our lessons a while back. There was something that we talked about in regards to the cookies and like the stored there.
I feel like maybe what you were talking about was something that happened when we were discussing session in Flask. I think. Because what was happening was we were trying to append some activity to a list. Or maybe this was Django, actually. It was a list of activities when the person was selecting their favorite colors, right?
Yeah.
But I think when I first created the app, there was no list of activities. So if I didn't clear the cookie, it was going to say something like, you know, there is no activities inside your request.session. So I just cleared it out so we'd start from scratch because now we want to have an empty activities list when a user first loads up the page.
I'm asking because of that thing that happened.
I think that's what you were referencing.
Yeah, no, it is.
Okay.
I'm only asking because of the thing that you saw when the message was still there.
Yeah, that's something I'd like to kind of get to the bottom of. It seems fairly random how it happens, but it seems like when that crops up is maybe when you have an error page or two, and then you go back to the page that was displaying the errors. Then they like pile up rather than just showing one time.
It
stays inside that list or
Mhm.
that dictionary.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It doesn't clear until we have like a successful page load. Yeah. All right. Cool. Let's have thumbs on login.
Actually, that was pretty good.
That was pretty good, right?
That's pretty good.
Still some sideways though.
Like,
Red,
like,
not so much.
not like 75%
Diagonal.
all the way.
Right.
Getting there.
Yeah, that's right.
You know that. We're in it like.
Okay. Well, hey, that's better than it's been.
Amen.
I think that was better than registration.
Definitely.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Cool. Thanks, guys.
Here.